Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. We have a big guest today. We have Harry Mitsidis, one of the world's most traveled people, the founder of NomadMania. Harry, welcome to the podcast.
Hello there. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for joining. I'm super excited to have you on. Been following you or been aware of you for years. And what's interesting is not only are you the founder of NomadMania, right?
Yep.
But you're also leading the scoreboard too.
Oh, that's almost embarrassing to admit, but yes, I am at the moment.
It's like inventing a sport and also being the best player.
Yeah, but that also makes me kind of compromise my credibility because then people sometimes say, oh, he's only leading because he made up the criteria or he made the list or something like that. So, people will sometimes challenge you with that. But, I just think you've got to be the best that you can. And it's not about leading a scoreboard with others, but it's about challenging yourself to do more today than you did yesterday. Something like.
Hmm. What does that mean, challenging yourself to do more today?
Well, I mean, in terms of travel and visiting places, I think some people travel and they reach a goal that they have, and then they kind of retire and they say, that's it. I wanted to do, say, every country, or I wanted to travel that much. Or, then maybe sometimes their priorities change. There are quite a few people who've traveled when they're younger, and then, they settle down, and then travel becomes something quite different for them. But I think in my case, it's very much part of my life. I would say it is the biggest part of my life. And that implies that I always want to be bigger, better, exploring more places, more difficult places, setting the bar higher every time, which means that in general, I tend to be going to increasingly bizarre and out of the way places all the time.
And just to hit it home for the audience, for anyone that hasn't heard of you, Harry is basically one of the most traveled people to ever live, quite possibly by some metrics, one of the most traveled people ever. He's been everywhere. We're not just talking every country in the world, we're talking about taking it even further than that. So, I don't know, Harry. I know you probably don't like talking about yourself or boasting about, your accomplishments, but could you just help the audience at home understand?
Sure. Well, look, I set myself a goal of visiting every country, and this was quite a few years ago. So I finished that in 2008 when I was 36, and at the time there was no Facebook, there wasn't really a big travel community, so I didn't know anyone else doing it, and everyone thought I was totally nuts. All my friends, my family, I would say I had to, the main barrier I had to get over wasn't so much the difficulty of traveling, but more of convincing the people in my environment that I wasn't totally crazy. But then once I reached the last country and did it, I found myself lacking other travel goals. What do I do next, kind of thing. And I'm a goal oriented person. I like having specific aims rather than just going left and right without a clear pathway. And so that is when I decided that instead of just looking at countries, we should divide the world in a more complex way, where you've got a lot of different regions. Every country has a lot of different places you can go to. And
Mhm.
anyway, fast forward 17 years from then, and we've got NomadMania, which divides the world into 1,301 regions. And this is our kind of understanding of what it would mean to be a really big traveler, to go to as many of these as possible, because countries are not necessarily enough. And this is kind of the list I've been following for the past 10 years or so, in terms of where I choose to go, trying to do as many of these.
Hmm.
And then, of course, revisiting the ones I haven't done properly or the bigger ones which have more meaty places to explore.
And most of our audience is American and Canadian. So to give them an idea, how do you split up the US if you know off the top of your head?
Yes, well, what we've done is we've actually gone beyond the states. We don't feel the states are enough. So we've actually split some of the bigger states. So California is split in four,
Wow.
Texas is split in three, and then the bigger states in terms of population are split as well. New York State is split in three, and so is Florida. And then I think places like Georgia has a split, and a couple of other states. And then Canada is split into its provinces, but because that was also not enough, we tend to have split the provinces in two. So even a place like Manitoba, you've got like southern Manitoba and northern Manitoba, and good luck getting to northern Manitoba. That's really quite a challenge. So obviously, some of these regions are easier to get to than others. And this is the whole fun of it, the challenge.
Hmm. And then the same thing could be said for other countries. Like I imagine Russia is broken down into 10 sub regions or something.
Well, Russia is divided into 91.
Ooh.
It is the biggest country in the world. I mean, by quite a difference. So yeah, Russia has the most splits overall because of its size. China and the US also have very many, but even small countries. Even if you take a country like, say, I don't know, Dominican Republic, which is really not that big, we even split that into two. So, it's not enough to just go to one place. You've got to explore a bit more, even of the smaller countries.
And so have you been to every sub-region? Is sub-region the right term or what do you call it?
I would just say region is,
Region? Have you
yeah.
been to every region in North America?
I have, yes. I've actually been to every NomadMania region in the whole of the Americas. So I have nothing left in the Americans,
That is
according to our division.
absolutely insane. So to use your example, what were you doing in northern Manitoba?
Searching for bears. So, well, northern Manitoba is really cold, and the thing to look out for are the bears. So, I flew into Churchill, which is the name of the main settlement up there. And I think one of the interesting things with places like that is just realizing that people actually live there and trying to figure out how they live there, what's the community like. No matter where you go, you're always going to meet interesting characters. And I would argue that in a place like Churchill, you meet really interesting people. I'm not sure there's that many people who want to live there by choice, perhaps some, but everyone there has a story. So, go to the place, have a beer, and then you can talk with people and understand the background and how they got to be in Churchill. That makes for, a really interesting visit.
So you've been to all 91 regions of Russia?
Yes, I have. Can you
That's
believe it? I
crazy.
can't believe it either, to be honest. But yeah, yeah, it was a matter of being systematic and planning well. It happens that I'm also quite good with languages, so I speak badly, but I can communicate in Russian, which is necessary when you're in the middle of nowhere and there's not a foreigner in sight.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah, I find it fascinating, and at the end of the day, everywhere is interesting. So every place has something to offer you, some more than others, and it's usually about the people, but sometimes it can really be about the history or the natural sites or some of the architecture or even the food. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about languages for a second because I've noticed with a lot of these travel to every country in the world guys that a lot of them really only speak English or they only speak English and maybe like their home country language, which is
Mm,
might be like German or whatever, right?
right, right.
I would have thought that in all the years that it would take to do this and all the time sitting around airports, that they might pick up an Arabic book or a Russian book and learn a little bit more of the language. Do you find that to be the case? Because I almost feel like you don't get the full experience if you're not at least conversational in
Mm,
Russian, Arabic,
mm.
French, kind of like at least the six major UN languages.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I will agree. I don't want to be critical. People have different priorities, and people also have different skills. For example, I'm really not very good at making videos, and I'm definitely not the kind of influencer type. So I couldn't do what you're doing for the life of me. So many of these people who don't speak that many languages are really good at making fantastic reels, for example. And so I do believe everyone has a talent. In my case, definitely languages have been a talent, and that's because I'm half Greek and half English. And so, I grew up speaking two languages from when I was a baby. And I think that already helps you understand foreign languages. But it has surprised me. Like now, NomadMania is organizing a trip to Central African Republic for a few groups.
Mhm.
And we were looking, because I'm not going on those trips, we were looking for volunteers in the groups who speak French, because someone in the group should speak French, because without it, you would be lost there. And almost no one did. We really struggled to find it. And these are people who really want to travel, big travelers. They want to go to every country. It's not just anybody. And I was quite surprised how few people spoke a language as significant as French. Definitely speaking languages makes you like a country more. I think without it, you feel you can't connect. And I think because traveling is really about connections. And that's why I like Latin countries best, because I'm really quite good at Spanish and I have bad but passable Portuguese. So I can deal with Latin America, and I love the people, because my favorite memories are these random conversations with taxi drivers in Peru, for example, where you start talking about their life, and then life in Peru and how it's different in Europe, and all about you really get an insight into their way of thinking. And I think if you want to understand a country, it's important to understand the thinking of the average person, of that country. No one better than a taxi driver, in my opinion. So languages really help with that.
Okay. Let's I think we got to hear Harry's Spanish for the podcast. You down with that?
Por supuesto, si quiere puedo hablar español.
Woo, okay. I'm not the best either. Pero entonces, tú has visitado todas las regiones y
Sí.
subregiones de todas las Américas. ¿Cuál fue la región más difícil de visitar?
Más difícil en las Américas. Bueno, la verdad, si estamos hablando de todas las Américas, son las regiones al norte de Canadá. En Resolute, porque es muy difícil llegar, el vuelo es muy caro, y así que, bueno, es muy, muy caro, es como $7,000, pienso, y no
Wow.
hay muchas cosas a hacer. Así que son difíciles del punto de vista logística. If you want, I can continue in Spanish, but I'm not sure all the listeners can really understand.
I
So,
got you. I think they got it too. I think they got it.
uh,
We got a smart audience. No, that okay. So very solid in Spanish. Um, Logistics is an interesting topic. I mean, you must spend a lot of time researching and applying for visas and all this type of stuff. I would really love to kind of get behind the scenes in almost like not what your day to day looks like, because I know that changes all the time, obviously, but
yeah.
maybe how you prepare your months, or how you prepare the logistics for a trip, or what's your strategy for applying for the visa, some of that stuff.
Right. Well, to be quite honest, if we're talking about visas, they almost seem a bit passe for me. I mean, when I was doing the first round back in the sort of late 90s, and the beginning of this century, yeah, I did have quite a few visas to get. But nowadays, and when I did the countries a second time, um, uh, I found that it had become much simpler. First of all, it seemed to me there were much fewer visas that are needed to get in an embassy because very many countries, and especially African countries, have actually done e-visas and you can apply online and then pay online. It makes everything much easier. Sometimes you struggle with the formatting of the photo or whatever, but it's still so much better than having
Putting
to
the,
find
so
the embassy.
is that what Harry's doing every night? Is like uploading PDFs on some stupid
Yeah,
government
well,
website?
no, not every night. No, no. Well, first of all, nowadays I tend to travel much slower than I used to. So I prefer to spend longer in a country and get to know it more. So I'm actually traveling to fewer countries per year, but I'm spending longer in the country. I wouldn't say visas are the problem. Now, I would say it's quite chaotic. It's not like I have a system. A lot of it seems random. I hear that there's a trip somewhere and I just join it. Or we as NomadMania want to get our community somewhere and we find someone who can do it for us. And then I'm inevitably going on that trip. And then, we do it that way. There isn't really a system. But I would say I do research what there is to see quite well. And I try to combine as much as possible or get the most out of my stay in a place. I'm the kind of person who wake up at 6 a.m. and go at it until the evening nonstop, trying to see as many things as possible. um, but I don't think there are really any hacks. Once you reach a certain level of experience, you kind of instinctively know what to do, and visas are not that complicated anymore. I think there's only a few countries which are really a nuisance. Nigeria is a bit of a problem, DR Congo perhaps. Um, but even with DR Congo, it's not the easiest visa, but once you have an invitation, you can even get it at the airport there if you're willing to pay. So I don't know. I would say we're lucky. We live in an era when we don't have that many visa woes, but that may change again. Who knows?
So I want to keep digging deeper on like the logistics side of thing
Mhm.
because there's definitely more to it than that. Like, or
I don't know what.
let's just say that we were like hanging out for a week and you were in a new place. How systematic are you about, okay, here's the important museum, here's the important, I don't know, monument, here's like the list of the 5 6 things to do? Are you trying to hit all those things, or are you just letting the day go how it goes and you're
Mm.
just chilling drinking coffee, or like how do you kind of just
Well,
approach
look,
things?
I'm an Aquarian, which means I can be quite moody, and it really depends on, what mood I'm in. So there are, let's say, last summer I went to Latin America. So since this is your area of expertise, so I planned a trip, which was partially a region trip because I was missing a region in Bolivia, the region of Potosi and Uyuni, funnily enough, one of the easiest and most popular I had not been to. And it ended up being my last region in the Americas.
I
And so
saw
that was my focal point. And I'm like, I'm going to definitely do that. But what else do I want to do around it? So I ended up just planning a trip. And I think I planned it within 20 minutes. And I'm like, I'm going to land in Lima. I want to see these few places in Peru. Then I'm going to go to Bolivia. I want to see these places in Bolivia. Then I want to speak a bit of Portuguese, so I'm going to go by land and cross the border and do a little bit of Brazil in that area near the Pantanal, and then I'll enter um, Paraguay and Argentina, and I'll come back from Buenos Aires. So all this was in my head, and I planned it in 20 minutes, and then I actually spent a bit more time in looking at how to do a few of the things in Peru I wanted to do. Um, I had actually never been to Machu Picchu, and I was really proud of myself. Like I have not been to Machu Picchu, but eventually I said, "Look, it's time to do that too." And I did that, and I also went to Paracas and did some relatively touristy things, but I just had never done them. And then I really delved into Bolivia, but it wasn't so difficult. It's just a matter of quickly seeing what you want to do, a couple of World Heritage sites, and then doing them. But I did have a few days, like there was a day in La Paz where I literally did nothing. I just had a couple of coffees and took the cable car and just went up and down on the cable car and just chilled kind of. There's a couple of really nice cafes in La Paz. So it can vary a lot. And I think it's also, I'm now really experienced. So what might for an average traveler seem very daunting, I can kind of do within 20 minutes. I really know my geography and what I'm missing and what I have done well and what kind of thing I want to get out of it.
And if you've ever kind of traveled together with a beginner traveler or just someone with less experience, what are they doing wrong or what kind of frustrates you, like funny little pet peeves?
Well, first of all, no one is doing anything wrong. I don't believe that there's a wrong or right way to travel. Everyone travels the way they want to. I mean, travel is supposed to be fun, right? It's supposed to be something we do for our own reasons. Everyone may have different reasons, and that's fine. Now, what frustrates me, because I'm a very active person and I want to get the most of things, is when I'm traveling with someone who wants to sleep till 10 a.m. And then have a very slow start to the day. And especially if I'm in a new place and I'm really eager to go out there and explore, and I'm stuck waiting until we start the day at noon. That to me is the hardest thing. What also frustrates me is a little bit, being preoccupied for things which I find really simple, like where do I change money, or how do I get around? I mean, these things are not really that difficult. But then again, I take that for granted, and very often I speak the language. But I can see how, for a beginner, finding their way around China when they don't know or they can't understand anything, this can be really daunting. So, yeah, I do tend to travel alone. When I travel for myself, I definitely travel alone. Nowadays, I also travel a lot with NomadMania, so that's when I'm kind of leading a group. And but even there, most of the travelers have some experience.
So, do you have that like a deep desire to maximize every day and get the most out of every day? Or do you realize that there's kind of like, that consistency is more important?
Well, I think my nature is to maximize every day, but at the same time, I'm getting older. And I also believe there's value in just sitting and observing and not necessarily
Mm.
always doing that much. And you can get a lot of insight just by sitting in a cafe and looking at the people. People watching is great. I don't think I've done enough of it, but I think as I get older, I'm appreciating it more. But not in a creepy way, just in a healthy way of observing how people in a place which is not necessarily mine interact and behave, the body language, and even what they're wearing. All these things can say a lot about the place.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Job Stacking. If you're a remote or hybrid worker looking to maximize your earning potential, then Rolf Haltza, author of Job Stacking, guarantees you'll be able to double your income by implementing his paycheck multiplication layering method. This is the exact system Rolf has used to take his own income and those of many others beyond $20K a month. With this method, Rolf contractually guarantees that you'll be able to double your income in 45 days. So, if you're interested in unleashing your earning potential and doubling your income, then click the link in the description and book a call with Rolf right now. I wanted to hear about this is kind of random, but how the brand name changed. So it was the biggest travelers, and then it became Nomad Mania. What's kind of the story there?
Okay, it was actually the best traveled.
Ah,
It
okay.
was the
The best
best
travel.
traveled. Yes, it used to be. So we launched this,
EBT.
or yeah, it was launched in 2012 as the best traveled, and then it changed in 2017 to Nomad Mania. Um, well, what happened mainly was that I think a lot of what we were doing changed. So initially, we really were just a list with places to go to, which were very much a ranking of travelers. So the best traveled really reflected, we're looking at who travels more or best or biggest or whatever. But I think as the project developed, we began giving it more of a quality focus. And I think the name The Best Traveled was just too quantitative and too focused on this quantity and amount. And many people were saying, well, you're just rushing to places and you're not really exploring them. And, to a certain amount, they had a point. And so yeah, it was decided that a different name uh, might be a better depiction of who we are. And then I came up with the name Nomad Mania. And initially, I can tell you the reaction was disastrous. People were like, "Are you out of your mind? You're naming this website after a disease, mania." And I'm like, "But aren't we maniacs? I mean, many of these people, and I'm among them, we're obsessed. So, in a way, it is a mania, and we're definitely nomadic. Many of the people don't have a permanent home. Even those who do, they're more often on the road than they are there. So, I think over the years, Nomad Mania really reflects what we do more because it gives a quality of the people involved rather than the places. And we're obviously both for people and places. I think our website balances both very well. But I think Nomad Mania is all about this desire, an endless obsession with seeing more and exploring all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it is a mania, I guess, and I'm trying to learn a bit more about the method behind the madness. But I think it's funny how you're just like, I don't know, man. I just kind of get up and go. It's not a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think trying to find a method here is pointless, mainly because mainly because I know a lot of the people now. Obviously, when this was launched 13 years ago, I didn't really know the community. I knew very few people. But the biggest gift for me from all this has been meeting all these incredible travelers. And the diversity is just mind boggling. And really, you've got all types of travelers. Some are very, some like traveling in a very luxurious way. Some have the lowest possible budget. There's very little conclusion that you can reach other than the fact that we all have the same passion and desire. And I think that the thing that does link us is this need for freedom. We cannot be caged. We want to be free, and travel is this expression of our need for freedom.
I love it. And so the next conference is in May, May 24th in Uzbekistan.
Indeed, yes.
Are you going to be at that one?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. I'll obviously be at our conference. So we have a conference every 2 years. This may change. We're thinking about making it an annual thing, but this is our first big conference where we are really expecting 100 people. We don't want it to be too huge because I think once you reach, let's say, 200, then you're kind of losing the ability to control both the event and the people. But 100 seems great. And we chose Uzbekistan because we think it's kind of exotic, but at the same time, it has enough of the infrastructure. It's difficult, but not that difficult. And we're going to a region which is Fergana, which is not really visited. When people go to Uzbekistan, they tend to go to Samarkand or Bukhara, but Fergana is out of the way. So we thought this is definitely quirky enough. And our conference this year has fixers as its theme. So it really is a conference. We're going to have 3 working days where we're discussing fixers and what they do, what their contribution is, if there's good and bad, if you should use a fixer or shouldn't. We'll also have some fixers tell us about bad and good travelers and how they see the world. But at the same time, we will be exploring Uzbekistan and its culture.
And is this a different region of Uzbekistan on the NomadMania list?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So Uzbekistan is divided in 5, and the Fergana Valley is kind of a natural region. If it's sort of surrounded by other countries, so it makes a very compact region. So I think most of the people coming have not been there, and they can claim this new region.
And are people going to like jump over the border to, I don't know, Kyrgyzstan and stuff to knock off more
I
countries?
think some of them might. We are focusing very much on Uzbekistan, especially that we've kind of partnered with a local tourist board, and they're super enthusiastic to have us because it's not like, so many people have heard of Fergana. So we are going to focus there. But I think some of the people coming are definitely combining with Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan, which isn't too far either.
Okay, cool. And back to the theme fixers. I guess fixer can have a lot of meanings in the
Mm.
world of travel and immigration. What does it mean in the context of the conference?
Well, in this context, it means, I mean, you can kind of look at it as a subgroup of travel agent or tour operator, only that a fixer is someone local in a place which is relatively difficult. This is
Mhm.
the jargon. So, you wouldn't call, a friendly tour guide in Lithuania a fixer. That's a tour guide.
Right.
But if you're going to Benin and Togo and kind of off the beaten track, then the guy who takes you there is probably a fixer. And I say guy because unfortunately, in most cases, inevitably, it tends to be men doing these jobs because the countries where they're operating are kind of male oriented, sort of difficult African countries, some of the harder Central Asian countries. That's where we're talking about fixers more.
Okay. Basically, a guy with a car who can get you around.
Well, it might be a bit more than that. I mean, in some
Yeah.
cases, they plan a nice itinerary. We're just gonna launch next week a very nice one to Lesotho, of all places. And
Hmm.
this guy looks quite organized. He's more than just a guy with a car. He knows where to take you. The idea is to immerse in the culture. So, the odd thing is that through doing this, I have found myself becoming friends with many of these people. And I really, really mean it. And I never thought I was going to have, a guy in Rwanda who I really consider a friend. And this is also a beautiful aspect of all this.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Crema Social. Crema Social is like TikTok for international dating. It's an app you can download right now on your phone, and 3 out of 4 people on Crema are single women. The app was founded in Colombia, so unsurprisingly, there are a lot of Latinas on the app, by the way. So how does it work? Crema Social is a social meal experience where you invite a hot girl for a lunch date via video call and food delivery. New concept, so you'll have to try it out for yourself, but this is probably the best way to meet Latinas before you visit the country. So if you're in Latin America or planning to visit Latin America, download Crema Social now and start getting dates right away. There will be a link in the description to download, or just search Crema Social on your favorite app store. Have fun, guys.
I'm kind of down to make it work for the conference. That's partly why I'm asking. I'm trying to I want
You
to come
know,
out.
you're very welcome to. We do have some surprises. I'm not going to say what. We are planning on doing at least one thing that has never been done. So we will
Mm,
probably go to a place where nobody has gone. But I can't reveal more at this point.
okay. And is our mutual friend Rick Kazarian coming? Do you know?
Sorry,
Rick
who?
Kazarian, Global Gas.
Ah, yes, yes. Rick is coming. Yes,
Rick's
yes,
coming. Shit,
absolutely.
maybe I gotta come. Okay, cool. Because I'm down to start. I'm down to start hitting every country in the world. I'm finally in
Oh.
a place. I'm finally in a place where I got access to some embassies if need be, and I'm kind of a bit more settled after 5 years nomadic, and I'm going to start
Mm.
getting a
How
bit.
many do you have until now?
Oh, dude, I got nothing. I got maybe 25, 30 countries.
That's fine. Everyone starts somewhere. So, well, I mean, we all started with only one where we were born. So,
Right, right,
it's
right.
the only way is up from there. Good luck then. You'll need it.
Here's my question. Here's my amateur. Where do I change money question? Which is, what do I do about internet? Because I need
Mm,
to keep making money. I got to keep doing amazing podcasts like this one. And so am I doing mostly like if I had to do podcasts like this from Burkina Faso or
mm.
Uzbekistan, what do you recommend for me?
Well, unfortunately, I can't give you a global solution. This has been a problem for me for a long time, but lately, I mean, ever since eSIMs came along, it's been better. So
Mm,
I think eSIMs solve about 70% of the problems, and it's very much a hit and miss. There are some countries where eSIMs seem to work really reliably, even in relatively remote areas. So my eSIM worked really well in China. I couldn't believe it, and it worked everywhere in China. So I
mhm.
was really happy. But then in some other countries, they don't work. And then you're kind of stuck. And I mean, there are places where even buying a local SIM card at the border will still not get you access everywhere just because the network isn't that developed. So, in Central African Republic, where they have power cuts all the time and then the internet goes with them, you're just going to have to live without. You'll know that you cannot get online reliably. This does happen. Unless, of course, you have Starlink or something like that. We went to Libya recently, and we went down to the Libyan desert. We were the first group to go to the eastern Libyan desert in 14 years, and
Wow.
we had Starlink, and that meant that we were connected all the time. I found that surreal. We were never offline, and we were truly in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
So that
Starlink's
was
the
good.
way.
Yeah.
Because yeah, they first it was pretty big. Starlink, it was like huge, like bigger than a pizza box. Now I think it's smaller, where it's like the size of like a textbook or like a biggish, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
More or
mini, you got
less.
the
Yeah.
mini Starlink, and then at some point in the future, you just know it's going to be the size of a
Yeah.
cell phone. Or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It will. And I mean, I do think that in, say, 20 years, you will really be able to connect everywhere. But I think we're still not quite there. You will always have to have this slight doubt that if you're totally out, you might not be able to connect. But obviously in cities and stuff, you will.
'cause that's my thing. It's like, so I come to Uzbekistan, I'm totally down, but I'm like, do I just cancel all my meetings for the 5 days or all my calls? I can't make any money, or
Well,
I don't
Well,
know.
no, in the conference, first of all, the hotel has reliable Wi-Fi. I mean, we're in the city, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
I suppose.
we will definitely. That is not an issue. Once you're in a city in a country like Uzbekistan, you will be connected all the
That makes sense. That's fair.
But I'm not sure you'll want to, because we're going to have so many events and so much going on, and there's going to be 100 people who are among the most interesting people you're likely to meet. So I
Right.
don't know if you're going to want to be connected when you've got all this sort of human resources there who all have stories to tell you.
I know, I know. Yeah, I guess that's the never-ending struggle, right? It's like gotta pay the bills, gotta uh, do, be an adult, but then also just want to, just go crazy and go to the Amazon and
Well, I think compromise is an art that you need in life for everything, not just for travel. Finding this balance between obligation, responsibility, and at the same time, freedom, being carefree. We all have to play with that. And I
yeah,
think the happiest people are those who manage to achieve this kind of balance. So, yeah, never ending struggle.
it's definitely a balance. I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, you need to ask about that corner of Libya, or you need to ask about different corners of the world. I'm sure people have a lot of specific things they'd love me to ask you, but we can't get to everything. I was curious. You still have a couple Nomad Mania regions you haven't got to, right? Like five or six that you're working on.
I have, at this point, there's six I have left. Yeah.
What I guess it's known what those six are, right? Are you able to
Well,
share?
yeah. I mean, if you look on my profile, you can see them. Yeah. So I haven't been to Gaza. I haven't been to one region of Yemen, which I didn't visit when Yemen was safe and now is out of bounds. I haven't been to Tokelau, which is a tiny little territory in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, governed by New Zealand,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of autonomous. The easiest one of the six are the highlands of Papua New Guinea, where many people have been because there's famous festivals there. I am planning to go this year, so that's one more. And then the other two, I haven't been to the North Pole, and I'm missing one region in Antarctica. So it's kind of quite a geographical spread.
How many is Antarctica split into?
That depends if you count the islands. I do count the islands as part of Antarctica. So in that case, the answer is five. We've divided Antarctica into five, and one of them is the South Pole itself.
That's funny. And what even is the North Pole? Is that part of Norway or
well,
something? I thought it didn't actually exist or something.
well, it's a concept rather than a place because there's no land there. It's just ice, right? And
Uh-huh.
there's no actual territory there. But because it is the extreme of the world and it's iconic, we felt that we do need to include it. And going there, I mean, you can go by ship. There are expedition cruises, and then you just reach the point which is zero, zero, like up there, and it, and you take your selfie and whatever. So, yeah.
So we're not talking about like Svalbard or something. It's like even more
No,
north
the North
than that.
Pole is the point where the coordinates are
Lit-
zero. Yeah. I mean,
Like literally
it's
the
like
top
up
of
there.
the planet.
Yeah. Literally the top of the planet. Yeah, that's the North Pole. Svalbard is a region on its own. It's a Norwegian territory. So, but that's quite far from the North Pole. It's still a long way to go from.
So Harry, you gotta level with me. Is the Earth flat or is it a globe?
Well, I don't know. You're going to have to find out for yourself, I think. You've got 160 countries to then get the answer for yourself. So good luck.
I think the conspiracy theorists will say, okay, then I guess the Earth is flat. Harry just doesn't want to. He knows secrets he
No,
doesn't
no.
want to
I,
share.
I just believe everyone needs to find out for themselves. And in terms of, when people ask me questions about the world or my opinion of countries, I really prefer that people reach their own opinions. Don't believe what you read and definitely don't believe what you hear. Just find out for yourself and reach your own decision.
Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about BitRefill. BitRefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. BitRefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information.
I like the way you answer questions. So I'm going to hit you with a bit of a spicy one, but I'm kind of curious what you think about this. What do you think about all the mass migration stuff going on in Europe and in North America right now, as someone has traveled as yourself, and how,
Mm,
it's kind of a double-edged sword, or there's two sides of it, right? It's like it's kind of destroying regional cultures, and that's one of the big reasons we travel, right, is to visit all these regional cultures. But you're in the UK, so you're seeing this happen in real time.
well, yes and no. I think, first of all, I do think that most countries have a very strong culture. That's probably why they survived. You know, nations survived, and so many others didn't, because their culture was strong enough to give the people who lived there an identity worth fighting for. And so I do think that the countries we have today all have a pretty strong identity, and their people adhere to that. Now, migration, I don't believe migration actually changes the culture. I would say, if anything, it might enrich it a bit. It might tweak it a bit. You know, you get elements that you didn't have. I grew up in Greece back in the late 70s and 80s, and back then Greece was really homogeneous. There was barely a foreigner in sight, apart from my mother, who's South African. So, but nowadays, Greece is really a mosaic. I mean, there's very many people, and obviously, in terms of migration, Greece is the first stop for people who come
Right.
in from further east. But I wouldn't say that Greek culture has been diluted. You know, and when you are Greek and you live here, you live a very Greek life. You just learn to accept that, the house help will not be Greek anymore. It might be Eastern European, or it might be Filipino, and you get to accept that, the person helping you with odd jobs may be from Pakistan. But this becomes pretty quickly acceptable, I think. um, but otherwise it doesn't affect daily life for the local people in most cases. Now, if you make it affect you, then it will. But I think then, if you make it affect you, it means you're really trying to make it affect you. And I'm not going to talk about this, the few incidences of violence or whatever. I mean, this happens everywhere, and there is violence of all kinds. So I'm definitely not going to point the finger to mass migration in terms of violence or anything like that. But anyway, that's my opinion, and I'm sure that some people will disagree. And that's why the world is beautiful, because we all have different ideas and opinion, and because we're all from different places.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's especially interesting being Greek because it's such an ancient culture, right? Going back thousands of years, and I guess you still kind of see it. Just it's not necessarily a bad thing. The mass migration, or
I don't think it. Well, I mean, I think it's a bad thing when you see people struggling. I also think it's a bad thing when people believe that by migration they're going to find a better tomorrow, and they don't, and they actually end up living a worse nightmare than they did before they left. And that happens a lot, I think. And there, I think it's a problem of bad communication, or people just believe everyone wants to go to Germany, and they think that's like the solution, or everyone wants to go to the US, and they think that's the promised land. Well, there isn't such a concept. I think maybe we, because we're the privileged ones, we come from countries that are relatively wealthy. We are aware, I think, of things that people from poorer countries aren't. So they're a bit they're a bit naive maybe in their expectations and end up being disappointed. Not always, but in many cases. And I think that's the sad side of it. But anyway, I will still insist that we live in privileged countries, and so we shouldn't be complaining too much.
Yeah, it's definitely a evolving kind of issue. I guess like it's really only just in the past couple of years, and I feel like as travelers, or me, I'm kind of in the immigration industry and talk about travel and living in different countries. You're obviously on the travel side of things. Like we kind of have maybe a interesting perspective on what's happening, and it's really been ramping up in the last 10 years.
Well, I think it's not only migration of that type that's growing. I think it's almost happening in reverse now. So you see
Wow.
very many people who come from privileged countries that, you get the digital nomad phenomenon. And I mean, that's not because of desperation. No, but that's because of a desire again to be free, not to adhere to this model of I'm going to have a job and I'm going to work 9 to 5. I have a different vision of what my life is going to be, and that ultimately makes you a nomad. I think an interesting thesis would be to compare digital nomads and migrants, and to see what their motivations are, because ultimately they're both moving and they're both in flux with very different circumstances. But maybe deep down they both have this inner desire, to kind of escape where they're from. But I think this is something that could be explored a bit more,
Yeah,
and look
no,
at.
it's we're definitely seeing that. We've talked about this a lot. Um, yeah, mixing it up a bit. I don't want to get you in trouble with the mass migration stuff, but um, so it's funny because when you've been to literally every region of the world, anytime you meet anyone from anywhere, you're like, yeah, I've been there. And it's not just like a surface level, yeah, I've been to your country, you're Russian, I've been to Moscow. It's like I've been to like your exact province, maybe your exact town. And you must have people's jaws on the floor when you tell people this sometimes.
Yeah, but I'm quite humble and I don't exactly advertise. I think when I travel, I definitely don't. I almost feel like it's like a secret that I should keep, because it will overwhelm people and then they won't see me for who I am. I'm really a normal guy, and I want to be approached like that. And I don't want people to be in any way intimidated or anything like that. I may well say, yeah, I know. I remember one time there was this guy, this was in Athens, and he was selling contraband CDs. This was a few years back, when CDs were still around. And
Yeah.
so, and I'm like, okay, well, tell me where you're from. And he's like, Africa. And I'm like, well, that much I can tell, but tell me which country of Africa. And he's like, you don't know it. I'm like, try me. And he's like, well, Benin. I'm like, oh, Cotonou. I've been there. And he looked at me and he's like, you're kidding, right? I'm like, no. And I've also been to Porto Novo and I've also been to Uida. And he was just so stunned. He gave me a CD for free. And he's like, I've been in Greece for 2 years and no one has ever said they know my country. And for me, that was a great moment because I felt I really made this guy happy. He was happy beyond words. And this has really stayed with me, this kind of making a poor guy from Benin really happy just because I knew where he was from. So I think in those occasions I may say, yeah, I know, but in general I try to avoid this profile of the person who has been everywhere.
Really? So you'll just keep it a secret. You'll have someone from like, wherever they're from, Central Asia or somewhere like pretty exotic, and you just won't even tell them that you've been there.
Well, I might if the occasion arises. I don't know, but but the thing is, nowadays I spend a lot of time with other travelers, and in our community, it's never about that because everyone's been everywhere, so we all, we're kind of a community, and there aren't any bragging rights anymore because you're dealing with your peers. So in that sense, yeah, I prefer to keep a low profile, and I also tend to not want to ask this question, where are you from, necessarily, not anymore, because I think it's more important to ask the question, who are you, what kind of a person are you. That tells me more about you than the country you were born in. So this is what I want to know.
So the community, if someone is listening to this and they want to get involved, maybe they're chasing 193 as well. Where does the community mostly live? Is it on Facebook groups or WhatsApp or Telegram or NomadMania.com? Of course. Where does it live?
Again, I think it's extremely varied. Many of the people don't live anywhere and they're ghosts, but I do think that quite a lot of people have Instagram profiles, especially people who are sort of in the younger. When I mean younger, I mean sort of 50 and below. They will probably have an Instagram profile. I do think that every passport stamp is quite a useful resource. And this is a Facebook page. So
Yeah.
every passport stamp is one of the more common resources for people who want to visit every country. And people share information there, especially about visa requirements or people you can trust, or other issues. Obviously, NomadMania is a resource because we have maps and places to go to for each one of our regions. So we go beyond the country. So if you're interested in, the, I don't know, the Eastern Gambia as opposed to Western Gambia, then we can kind of look at that. You can look at the map and then go in and look at where to go. So we give ideas, and we do that in many different ways. I think these are key resources. From there on, different people use different tools. So some people are on couch surfing still. And I was actually talking to someone about whether couch surfing is or isn't popular anymore. So we had that debate. And again, it depends a lot on the ways you travel. I do think the community is a bit fragmented. Some people are regulars and they're in it, but I wouldn't say that that number is very high. And what surprises me always is how many people I have never heard of or I don't know. And I would say that as the founder of the site, I should know people, but there's just so many people traveling, and that's a great thing.
Yeah. So we'll get to wrapping up in a minute here. I was curious. So the every passport stamp, I've been aware of that group for a while. It's pretty cool. You must have like a bunch of like esoteric sources for information for maybe different regions or communities. What are some other like esoteric ones that you enjoy that you wouldn't mind sharing with us?
Um, to be honest, I'm very much offline nowadays. I'm the wrong guy to ask. I've been tiring of social media and of online stuff for a long time, so I no longer have that. My esoteric way is to ask the people I know. And I tend to know people from everywhere now. So if I want tips about Rwanda, I'm going to go to Obed and I'm going to ask Obed, who's our fixer there, tell me, give me the lowdown, what's hot in Rwanda now. And I'm going to do the same for Central African Republic or Ghana or Namibia or Afghanistan even. I'll go straight to the locals, straight to the source. Some of these people are fixers, we know. Some others from some other countries, they may also be travelers. We have one very prominent traveler who's also a fixer from Algeria. So, I mean, if I ever want any information or if I ever want an itinerary that takes me to new places in Algeria, I'm probably going to go straight to Wasim. I'm not going to sit and look at the internet for that. Because at the end of the day, the local person always knows things better.
And do most locals they prefer WhatsApp? I'm guessing, or
We communicate on WhatsApp, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of the way. Yeah. Yeah. Although now we have the NomadMania chat. So, I think over time, more and more people will use our own chat to exchange information.
How many contacts you got in your WhatsApp? I'm just curious. 10,000 plus?
Uh, no, I think near to 2000, I think.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. But then, yeah, again, I'm pretty selective. So,
I can tell. I can tell. Oh man, in Algeria, I'm looking at Algeria on the map. It's 9 different regions, I think.
yeah, it actually deserves a 10th one. So we're looking at that.
I'm sure you got a lot of people who are like petitioning for, more subdivisions, or they want to see their region kind of represented.
Um, I'm not sure there are. I don't know. I mean, no one has done them all, so I don't think that. I think an average person, a sort of average traveler, will probably end up doing 300. That's quite kind of. I would say already with 300, you're definitely a committed traveler. You've done a lot of stuff. So I would like to think 1,301 is already a good division, but yeah, I can see us growing. And as I said, we always want to set the bar higher. So why not offer more opportunities for exploration? And in terms of Algeria, I can really recommend it. It's an amazing, unexplored place. And it's kind of been isolated for so
Mhm.
long that they love foreigners there because we're such a novelty.
Yeah, yeah. I think for that one, people need to get a letter of invitation or something, right? So maybe I gotta reach out to your community and get a trip
Well,
organized.
just I can give you Wasim's number. He's the guy. So yeah, you do. And in Algeria, it is quite frustrating sometimes, especially if you're American. They're gonna want you to have a police escort everywhere. What can you do? Yeah, there are some disadvantages to being American sometimes.
I got an Italian passport, so I'll probably use that one.
Ah, all right then.
Well, Harry, thanks you so much for joining us. It was an honor to connect and have you on the podcast. And I mean, I, f- I feel like any podcast would never do it justice. That the amount of lived experience that you've had and everything. But it was just great to have the chance to speak with you, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for coming. And I apologize we didn't talk more about Latin America, but maybe next time.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do that. I mean, we talk a lot about Latin America on the podcast, so people have to subscribe to the podcast. We put out 2 episodes a week with amazing guests like Harry, guys. So please subscribe. And me, I'm gonna try to make it happen. Come out to this conference in May. I want to meet the most interesting people, so I'll see what I can do. Harry, where can people, learn more, and any final message you want to share with the audience, all that good stuff?
Well, my final message is please be kind and spread positivity because we all need it. And that is without exception, even to people who may not share your opinions. So, this is my message. And in terms of finding me, well, I'm on nomadmania.com. So, you can definitely find me there. I'm also on Instagram. I am Harry Nomad, but I'm not really that systematic on Instagram. And that's about it. Yeah.
And everyone can go to Nomad Mania, create a profile, and start adding their countries, right?
Yep. Yep. It's totally free, totally open, and we encourage community. So join us, come to our conference, join one of the trips to bizarre places, and get to know other people who are curious about the planet.
Love it. Thanks again for doing this, man. Really appreciate it. And as I mentioned to the audience, subscribe to the podcast, go to nomadmania.com, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Ciao for now.